In her account of her time in Auschwitz II, titled None of Us Will Return, Charlotte Delbo focuses heavily on her close relationships with the other women in the camp, who frequently shared resources and watched out for one another. Delbo and the others rarely saw the male internees, and when they did, Delbo's response was sympathetic, but ultimately disturbed by their isolation. Quote, "Their eyes are averted from those who are still waiting, and when you see their faces, you know why. How can one relate the distress of their gestures, the humiliation in their eyes? To Delbo, whose dependence on her peers allows her to survive, the sight of the men, ashamed by their own helplessness and unable to take comfort in one another, is incredibly lonely. While men are typically socialized to be independent and active, the system that Auschwitz operates denies both freedom and action. Delbo's group is automatically drawn together without shame, but fear and distrust keep the men from even the comfort of human connection." Primo Levi explores this male perspective in his memoir Survival in Auschwitz, also titled If This Is a Man. His account is accepted as one of the most significant texts to understanding the Holocaust. The context of Delbo's account serves as a reminder that men's experiences of isolation are not definitive and universal to Auschwitz. Women relied on one another and supported the weakest, which counteracts common assumptions that a death camp means the strongest internees focus on themselves. Likewise, Levi himself refuses to depict traditionally masculine qualities as necessarily honorable or as prerequisites for survival. As Delbo captures in her brief mentions of the male internees, the qualities encouraged in men, like self-reliance, are essentially worthless in a death camp where internees have no freedom. Auschwitz does not reward the most capable because Auschwitz itself as a system is intentionally illogical and designed with death and heartlessness in mind. In one particularly famous chapter, The Drowned and the Saved, Levi categorizes internees in Auschwitz III into two categories. The drowned are those who have lost their spirit and become a lifeless husk, destined to soon die. The rest of the camp avoids the drowned, as their loss of humanity is frightening and threatens the survival of anyone associated with them. The saved, on the other hand, are those who have found some strategy to exploit, which gives them the energy to live. Nonetheless, rather than describing Auschwitz as a true survival of the fittest competition where the most willful men survive, Levi captures a variety of strategies in his depictions of the so-called saved. Henri, in particular, stands out as an unconventional man. Quote, "His eyes are deep and profound. Henri is perfectly aware of his natural gifts and exploits them with the cold competence of a physicist using a scientific instrument. The results are surprising. Basically, it is a question of discovery. Henri has discovered that pity, being a primary and instinctive sentiment, grows quite well if ably cultivated. Henri relies on his innocent, soft appearance to further himself in Auschwitz, rather than attempting to exercise strength or much active kind of autonomy. Aware of his delicacy, he takes advantage of it to appear as unassuming and gentle as possible in order to benefit off of others. Henri is not a man who plays into traditional expectations of masculine behavior under pressure, but his strategy works successfully to a degree that Levi finds uncomfortable. Because despite his facade of purity, even Henri is not the ideal survivor from Levi's point of view. Levi perceives Henri's manipulation without admiration. Quote, "From all my talks with Henri, even the most cordial, I've always left with a slight taste of defeat, of having been, somehow inadvertently, not a man to him, but an instrument in his hands. I know that Henri is living today. I would give much to know his life as a free man, but I do not want to see him again." Although Henri's strategy works and challenges the idea of masculinity in Auschwitz as composed of dominance and forcefulness to gain advantages, his internal coldness and emotional distance remains the same as the other internees. To Levi, Henri's deceptive warmth is perhaps worse than direct undermining or abuse. Henri subtly plays with a person's innate desire to show kindness, forcing out altruism and generosity that the environment of Auschwitz normally suppresses. His selfishness and motivation, meanwhile, makes the emotional response he provokes even more upsetting. Henri leads others momentarily out of their carefully maintained stoicism, turning them even more vulnerable as he gets out of them what he needs to continue his own guardedness. Levi's placement of Henri's story at the end of the chapter leaves it with a chilling tone. Even without physically hurting other men, getting by in Auschwitz without enacting some cruelty to save yourself is impossible. Even being social is tainted with the goal of benefiting or stealing from a person. However, Levi does not condemn his fellow internees as naturally immoral. Quote, "The conviction that life has a purpose is rooted in every fiber of man. It is a property of the human substance. Free men give many names to this purpose and think and talk a lot about its nature. But for us, the question is simpler. Today, in this place, our only purpose is to reach the spring. At the moment, we care about nothing else. To Levy, men are not intrinsically aggressive and self-serving. Auschwitz is not drawing out some suppressed evil at the heart of its victims. Instead, Auschwitz creates its evil, forcing behaviors that a person's humanity normally rejects. These inhumane behaviors are inhuman, caused by the restrictive environment of the camp, which erases any semblance of a deeper personal motivation than survival. The conclusion of the memoir particularly conveys this. As soon as the structure of the camp has vanished, Levy and the other men return to mutual kindness and assisting the ill and injured. Levy, finally returning to contact with the outside world and the destruction caused by the war, reflects that, quote, the work of bestial degradation, begun by the victorious Germans, had been carried to its conclusion by the Germans in defeat. It is man who kills, man who creates or suffers injustice. It is no longer man who, having lost all restraint, shares his bed with a corpse. Levy suggests that it is not individuals who are evil, but institutions. Nazism shaped behavior on a collective scale towards senseless hatred, while internees are essentially stripped of their ability to engage in the world of mankind, where morality even exists. The 2023 film The Zone of Interest confronts similar questions, but from the perpetrator's perspective. The film depicts the commandant of Auschwitz, Rudolf Hess, as a family man whose career allows his wife and children to live comfortably in a beautiful home and garden besides Auschwitz II. The Hess family fits neatly into the idealistic nuclear family structure, but distorted by details that alienate and repulse the audience from its familiarity. In one sequence early in the film, Hedwig, the wife, lightheartedly discusses her new fur coat, boasting to other women she hosts. She jokes about getting it from Canada. Not the country, but the collection of stolen goods from the internees. The conversation is followed by Hess in a meeting discussing the construction of new crematoria. The two scenes together establish the traditional gendered roles within Auschwitz's system. Hedwig to maintain the perfect appearance of the home, and Hess to manage matters outside of the household. The general image of a woman at home hosting lunch and a man in important meetings is recognizable. However, the actual dialogue and context, casually talking about atrocities, is disgusting. Their normalization of it proves that the system and its roles work perfectly for them, and even play off of gender expectations that are still present today. As Nazism has granted the couple the dreamlike life it promised them, their actions and apathy have become completely justifiable to themselves. Hess, meanwhile, is a cold, unexpressive man. In one scene, he calmly forbids over the phone any damage to the camp's lilac bushes, ordering that SS officers who damage the bushes be punished. The contradiction between his concerns, the presence of the flowers to decorate the camp, and the function of the camp to eradicate human lives, is inexplicable. His description of the bushes as bleeding additionally humanizes them far more than he bothers to humanize actual people. Lilacs are large and fragrant, and seemingly provide an illusion of beauty within the camp, with their smell possibly covering the smells of human death. Like the lilacs and the perfection of the Hess family home, Hess's composure creates a facade of perfection. Hess fulfills his expectations as head of the family and of Auschwitz with the same collected dutifulness, simultaneously displaying no remorse and no outright aggressive qualities. Just as Hess carries out his role, Hess's sons innocently echo the behavior they observe. With SS officers as their role models for masculinity, the boys display cruelty towards each other in the same unaffected fashion as their father. When Klaus locks Hans in the greenhouse, he listens to his brother scream with a self-satisfied smirk. In the same way Primo Levi fears the evils created and promoted by human societies, the sons have been shaped already into thoughtless brutality by their environment and entitlement. The film portrays the Hess family with detachment, letting their domestic lives make them recognizably real, but never allowing the audience to connect emotionally to them. Both Levy's account and the fictionalized film examine how social roles enable immorality. In Levy's case, humanity wants to be good, but the camp refuses to allow humans to be human. The men are additionally held back from trust by their expectation as men to be independent, as the camp's social order stifles their ability to connect. In the case of the Zone of Interest, the pre-established role of manhood allows Hess to treat his actions as simply a well-paying job that brings happiness to his family and aligns with his values. The film forces audiences to acknowledge that evil is not a vague, nebulous thing. It's rooted in human society and often twisted to be acceptable.